Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living in Switzerland. The series is brought to you by Rigby. We are a staffing and project services company based in Zurich. If you or anyone you know of is looking for a new role in Switzerland, or if you're looking to hire, let us know. We'd be happy to help. The best way to do that is by going to rigby.ch/apply and filling out the form. Then, if we have anything that might be of interest, we'll gladly let you know.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expert Guide to Your Life in Switzerland. This is Daniel from Rigby in Zurich, and we have something a little bit different again for you this time, which is another conversation between Diccon and Beth Zurbuchen. Beth is the president of the Swiss Center of North America, and Diccon met with her in New Glarus as part of his recent tour of the US. In this conversation, Beth tells us a little bit about her experience of traveling in Switzerland as a Swiss citizen, but one who didn't grow up here. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe. So, enjoy the episode.
Hello again, I'm Diccon Bewes, and this is your Expert Guide to Your Life in Switzerland podcast. This month I'm in New Glarus with the president of the Swiss Center of North America, Beth Zurbuchen.
Grüezi.
Grüezi. And we're going to have a little talk about the different expectations that travellers have if it's your first time in Switzerland, like it was for Beth quite recently, or whether you're a seasoned Swiss traveller like me because I live there. And I think one of the biggest questions I get asked, either by email or when I'm doing guided tours, is how much can I see in Switzerland? Because Americans rightly have this idea that it's very small, twice the size of New Jersey, and so pack a lot in. Is that the right thing to do?
I don't believe so, Diccon. You want to be able to enjoy what you're seeing. You want to be able to learn about what you're seeing. And if you are trying to have an 8-day vacation in Switzerland and you have, 12 stops you want to make, 15 stops, all you are doing is traveling. And you're not enjoying, you're not experiencing. I really think, and you said this to me, slow down, experience it, because then it becomes real. And you're just not living by photographs. You have true memories if you travel, go fewer places and enjoy those places more.
But really the temptation, this may be your only time in Switzerland, so the temptation really is there, and I can understand it. You want to go to cities like Bern and Lucerne, you want to see the Matterhorn and the Eiger, you want to take a great train ride, you want to go through the Alps, you want to take a paddle steamer. It's really hard to know, and it's hard for me because I've been all those places and done all those things, so it's really hard to know what should I prioritize, or what would you recommend to people. What are your favorite places that you've seen?
It's hard for me to tell others how to prioritize, which I know you experience too. But let's say someone is talking to me about Switzerland and they have Swiss roots.
Okay.
It always begins with, I want to go to the place where my grandparents, my great-grandparents came from, my family came from.
Their Heimat.
Their Heimat, their place of origin. And that to me should be probably their first stop.
And it's probably going to be some little village in the middle of nowhere, because that's why people emigrated 150 years ago, to escape the poverty of rural Switzerland. So it's less likely to be a city like Zurich or Bern.
It absolutely. And Americans have to realize when they say Bern, I always go city or canton.
Yeah, exactly.
And they go, what's a canton? I go, it's like a state. But, they're from Bern. And so it's like, okay, where? And sometimes here at the Swiss Center, we help people identify where that might be. If they don't know, I can go to the surname book and I could give them an idea of where that it could be. And yes, it'll probably be a little place if you're from, the old Glarus, as we say here in New Glarus. It could be Luxinger, it could be Elm, it could be any of the little up valley, communities, because that's where the people who settled here came from. And I think because that's first on the list of when they said, I really want to find my Heimat, then go there first.
Yeah.
And if it's a little village, do your research, because there may not be a hotel. You're probably going to have to take a bus there, and Americans like cars.
Yeah.
And, if you use the train system, the rail pass, and from there spoke out. Because if you are in the German-speaking part, which most of us here in central Wisconsin are from, then you probably won't be traveling to Ticino or down to Geneva. Probably not.
Not on your first trip, anyway.
Exactly.
You might get a taste for it and go back for more. And I think the other thing that is really important to remember, if you're going to places like that, to look for your ancestors. Everything in Switzerland is shut on a Sunday.
Yep.
And on a public holiday. And the public holidays are different from American public holidays because in Switzerland generally they are still religious holidays. So we had Ascension Day in May and Pentecost comes shortly after that, whereas in America you have Memorial Day in May. And so I think it's easy for people coming from countries like Britain or America where public holidays don't actually make that much difference, say, to retail opening hours or to hospitality, to remember that Sundays and public holidays are quite strictly observed, especially in rural areas. So don't expect anything to be open, least of all parish halls or record offices, but even also shops and restaurants.
And to be very specific, grocery stores.
Yeah.
Somewhere you can eat. The restaurants will be closed. You can't even walk into a grocery store and buy something unless you're at the train station, right?
Yeah.
The big
And
ones.
actually, once you live there and get used to it, and I had to get used to it because I came from London and I was used to 24-hour society. And it was frustrating, and it is one of the biggest complaints of a lot of expats, but also visitors to Switzerland, is why are the opening hours stuck in 1982? But once you get used to it, you actually appreciate that different work-life balance, whether you live there or whether you're visiting. Just you slow down and you take stock of what's around you rather than dashing from place to place, because place to place, generally, they're closed on Sunday. So what's the favourite, if you think of the big sites that people go and see, I know I took you to see the Matterhorn.
You did.
And you weren't that keen to go. Basically, you thought it was going to be too touristy, and it's just a mountain. So, is it worth going?
Yes. I have my prejudices against touristy spots. I want to go places that most tourists don't go, because sure, that mountain has been taken photographs of many times, so I've seen it. But you looked at your weather app and you said, Beth, the weather's going to be perfect. So we go on the train, it's a beautiful ride, and it's the bluest sky, and do we turn a corner or something? But all of a sudden it's there, and it's grand, and photographs can't do anything justice. So yes, it was, and we stayed, and we had lunch, and we walked, and you pointed out the as we say, glacier, and that
Glacier to the rest of the world.
Yes. The glacier, and that. Okay, we're looking at the Matterhorn, and right to my left was a mountain top that was taller.
It was the highest point in Switzerland, Du Vorspitze, which is taller than the Matterhorn. Obviously, it's the highest point in Switzerland, but it's not as impressive when you're at that vantage point because it just looks like a little nobule. Yes,
Yeah.
a mound. And I do remember it was, I think, possibly the first time you'd been up over 3,000 meters, except in a plane, and you found the air quite thin.
You mean?
Yeah.
Yes. And so slow down. We don't have to run up the steps.
And that's part of the experience because in Switzerland it is really easy, thanks to the amazing infrastructure that was built 150 years ago for lazy British tourists to get around. You can go up mountains relatively easy in trains or cable cars and enjoy this amazing panorama. You don't have to be a mountain goat to do it. A lot of Swiss people do hike up, but a lot of tourists don't. And you can still enjoy the scenery. Yes, there were lots of people. It wasn't not busy, but it wasn't horrendous.
It was absolutely delightful. I think because we were there early October, it wasn't as crowded as it would be, say, August, perhaps.
Yes, and I know we both are fans of travelling in shoulder season, off season. And in Switzerland, of course, there are two high seasons. So this is another thing you have to remember if you're planning your trip, especially if you're going to the mountains. High season is the peak summer, which is great for hiking. It's also school holidays across most of Europe. So July, August can be busy. They can be hot, is the other thing people don't expect.
You have no air conditioning.
Air conditioning is
It's
coming
limited.
slowly. It's limited. So the trains are air conditioned and newer trams and buses, but generally a lot of hotels and shops aren't. And so when it's 30 degrees plus, and I mean 30 Celsius, not 30 Fahrenheit. So when it's 90 plus outside, it can get quite hot. We have no ocean, we have no sea to cool us down, and so it can get hot and stay hot. So unless you are tied to summer holidays, I would try and avoid July and August. Everything is busier and the weather can be less comfortable if you're not used to the heat. And then the converse is winter is ski season in the mountains, so everything gets more expensive and gets booked up. Even post-pandemic, it is recovering already. So typically from Christmas right through to the end of February is when it's really busy. The cities, it's less of an issue. And so if you are thinking of going to the winter, of course, the mountains are beautiful.
Yes.
Winter wonderland. And a lot of the mountain trains still run all year round. But if you're looking for hotels and you're not going skiing, then you might find some issues. So I would always suggest, especially if it's your first time in Switzerland, go in May, June, or September, October.
And for the Americans who haven't traveled out of this country often, don't overpack. My first trip to Switzerland...
oh my God, you brought a dead body back. I mean, it was huge.
It was... I don't know, I probably had an outfit for every day or shoes for every day. I don't know, but I had the big, giant American suitcase, which once people gave me things to bring back to the Swiss Center, books, etc., I couldn't lift my suitcase. And you know what? You don't need it. You can wear your clothes more than once, but I really have been stressing that to people I talk to who travel. Try to get by with a small to medium bag. Now, I once tried to just pack in a backpack.
You failed dismally.
Oh, even worse than that. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So I accept it. But I'm trying to cut back, and it doesn't, just don't do it. You can't lift your suitcases up on the train if that's how you're traveling. And if you are like many Americans who want to stay in 8 different places over 8 nights, you're carting around that, not one, probably 2 giant suitcases. So be light and do not pack that way.
Yes, I think that's always good advice, whether you're going to Switzerland or whether, for me, coming here, I'm surviving on one normal-sized suitcase for a whole month, which does mean doing laundry in places, but that is possible with Airbnbs or with hotel laundries. I think the other big question especially for people coming from North America, from USA, Canada to Switzerland, is how am I going to get around? Because unless they live between New York and Washington, D.C., they are not used to trains.
Buses.
Or buses. I've met many people on this current tour who have never been on a train in their life, not once. Whereas in Switzerland, trains and buses are a way of life, and they do reach everywhere. But there are pluses and minuses for anything. I would say the plus for train travel is you can buy a train pass before you arrive, so you don't have to think about tickets, you don't have to think about, oh, is that the best route or is that the more cost-effective route? You can experience Swiss travel very easily with a pass, and the pass will cover trains and buses and boats on the lakes and many cable cars as well.
And admission to some museums.
And it's a really easy way to get around Switzerland. The train reaches most places, and if the train doesn't go there, a bus will go there. You don't have the hassle of driving or parking or paying for parking or paying parking fines.
Or finding parking
or
if you're
finding
in a bigger
parking,
city.
or worrying about roundabouts, because I know roundabouts aren't a big thing in America, but they're a big thing in Europe.
They're getting to be big here.
But there is the downside that if you're, say, a family of 4, then a car is more cost effective, because trains in Switzerland are not particularly cheap. They're wonderful service. They go lots of places. They're very comfortable. They have some amazing scenic routes, but the costs do mount up. So you may think that for a family of 4 or 4 friends traveling together, a car is more cost effective. But you have to remember the other thing is trains go places the cars can't. So, for instance, to get from where I live in Canton Bern down to the Matterhorn by train is very easy. It's 2 hours because we go through a tunnel. And that tunnel does not exist for cars. You can put the car on a train and go through the tunnel. If you don't want to do that, you have to drive all the way around via Lake Geneva. So there are some times when the train has the advantage and you get to see things that you couldn't possibly see. Zermatt itself, the town at the foot of the Matterhorn, is car-free. You cannot drive there. So if you do drive up there, you have to park in the town before, in Tesch, and take the little shuttle train in. So it isn't always as simple as train is great, car is bad, or car is flexible, train is inflexible. I would always suggest looking at where you want to go, how you want to get around, whether you want to have to think about things when you're doing it, and how many people you are, and find the answer that's best for you.
I am a huge advocate of the rail pass, and I agree, Diccon, economy of scale, if you've got a large family, it would make some sense to rent a car. The SBB has a wonderful app that tells you when a train comes, when it leaves, and where you're,
even which platform it's on.
Yes.
And it covers every form of transport, not just the national railway. So it covers mountain rails, mountain trains, which are different companies, or cable cars, or buses, or boats. So it is public transport in Switzerland is an all-inclusive system, whether that's one ticket covering various forms of transport or one timetable app that covers everything.
And it's lovely because, let's say the day before, you're wondering, okay, I'm going to go up to Adelboden, which is in the mountains in Canton Bern. And how do I get there? Oh, I'm going to take a train. Then I have to take another train, and that one comes every hour. But we only have about a 2-minute layover. And it's so efficient, and it's easy. And I was intimidated because I hadn't been on a train probably since I was 10 years old because we have cars here. The other thing, well, two things. You're not constantly looking at a map, although I know now we have navigation. The driver can actually, if you're not driving, you're on the train, you can see out and look at the mountains, look at the lakes. It is stunning scenery that you don't really experience when you're driving on the highway.
No, that's true. I mean, I've driven around Switzerland, and you don't see a lot because you have to concentrate. And of course, you can be flexible. You can have a train pass, and then if you really want to go and explore a little bit away from the public transport, you just hire a car for a day. That's relatively easy. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can mix and match. But when it comes to eating, it is harder to mix and match. I know you have some eating stories, because eating out is expensive in Switzerland. I think that we have to take that not for granted. We have to take that as a given, that you will spend more if you're eating out than if you are self-catering. But
and that's from McDonald's to a fancy restaurant.
Yeah. But there are some ways you can save a few pennies. I know you have your favorite tip.
I don't eat out much in a restaurant. I go to either the Coop or the Migros, so the two grocery stores that are almost in every village. And you buy your bread for very little, whatever you would like to eat. For me, it would be cheese, little sausage, maybe some wine, and bring it back to where I'm staying, and that will get me by for 2 or 3 meals, and I spent 10 Swiss francs or less.
Or if you do want to eat out, then both Coop and Migros have, in the larger stores, they have in-house restaurants, which are very cost-effective. They're usually semi-self-service, so there'll be a chef cooking something fresh, but then there'll be a salad bar and things like that. You typically only open Monday to Saturday for lunches, but they are a really quick and easy way to get a nice meal for not too much. And the other thing I always point out to Americans who write to me or moan personally when they say, oh my God, $25 for a pizza, because that's what a pizza can cost in Switzerland. It's usually around 17, 18, 19, something like that. But every price in a Swiss restaurant includes tax and service. So you don't
That means the tip.
That's the tip. You don't have to tip if you don't want to. You can tip, obviously, it's always welcome, but it is included. So whereas I had my $20 pizza in America here a couple of weeks ago, and then 8% sales tax, and then 20% tip on top after the tax. And it all adds up to effectively more than the same pizza would cost in Switzerland. And obviously pizza is a universal example that you can find everywhere, and if you start eating meat or fish or having alcohol in Switzerland, it does get progressively more expensive. But always remember that what you see is what you get on a Swiss menu. There aren't any hidden costs, unlike the surprises you get in an American restaurant.
And if you are in a larger community in Switzerland, very often a restaurant will have a menu for us in English. I can read German well enough now that I have an idea of what I'm ordering, but oftentimes that English menu is available. However, realize that when you are in the small communities, people are speaking their dialect. Many, yes, they learn English when they are in their early elementary schools at age, as we would know, but then they haven't spoken it for years, so they're uncomfortable with it, and so the communication can be a little bit more difficult. But it's okay. I've experienced pantomiming, and it worked just fine. But understand that not everyone does speak English. Many do, but not everyone, and don't have that expectation that everyone will.
For sure, and I think that's one of the misconceptions about Switzerland, because it's a country with 4 national languages, that a lot of people assume that everyone is multilingual, and lots of people are, and English is the unofficial 5th national language. But the further you go away from tourist areas or larger cities, the less likely you are to find people who speak fluent English. Younger generation, it's more likely than older generation. And of course, then you get the issue of false friends. For instance, the word menu itself. In Switzerland, menu is a fixed price meal which is served at lunchtime. So if you ask for the menu, it's typically a soup or a salad to start, a main course, and then a coffee. It is not the menu, or in German you say the Speisekarte, so literally the meal card, which shows you all the dishes that are a la carte and that can be ordered separately. So you'll come across false friends like that, which will just make your visit more entertaining.
I like that, false friends. One thing that comes to mind too that harkens back to a bit of a conversation we had a couple minutes ago is if you are if you're looking for your Heimat, you're looking for people that you might be related to, and you do want to go into the what we would call the county courthouse, these individuals, first of all, do not work for Americans, or they're not there to help us out. You do need to make appointments. You do need to find someone who can speak English with you, who know what you want to do. Same thing with the churches. Most of them you can walk in, but there's not someone there to talk to you, nor go through the church records. Plan for that in advance. If you do, then you won't be disappointed.
And I think that goes for most things now. You can plan in advance. So, for instance, if you want to use the Swiss Travel Pass, you have to buy it before you go to Switzerland. You can buy it online, it's easy. But once you're there, it's much harder, and if you're a resident, it's not even available to you. But I would also say don't overplan every minute, because you might think, oh, this is beautiful, let's stay, let's go for a hike. Hiking is very easy in Switzerland. It's very well signposted everywhere and very accessible. And so plan what you feel you have to plan, whether it's appointments or travel passes, and then leave lots of flexibility so that you can make the most of your time in Switzerland, which after all is the home of watchmaking. So we do look after time, but sometimes it's easy to lose track of time when you're out hiking or when you're on an amazing train ride. So just go with the flow and enjoy Switzerland for what it has to offer.
And Switzerland, to me, is truly one of the most magical places I've ever been. Of course, that's where my heritage is from. I'm now a dual citizen of the U.S. and Switzerland. But to arrive there at the most beautiful airport in Zurich, It's so easy, it's clean, it's fast. Heidi and Elkhorns welcome you. And
it's a bit kitsch.
It's wonderful. It makes me happy every time I'm there.
And they hand out chocolate. If you fly Swiss, they hand out chocolate as you land. And
they do.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful country, and I just so echo Diccon. Take your time. Smell the roses or the alpenflowers.
Yes. So thanks for your input, Beth. It's been
You're
great
welcome.
to speak to you. I will have to come back so we can do this again in a few years' time.
Promise?
Yeah.
Good.
You can find out all the information that we've mentioned today about Swiss passes or about the Swiss Centre itself in the show notes so that you can access it online. And we'll be back again with Daniel another time to talk about more things Swiss.
And thanks to you for listening. We'll include links in the show notes to our guest and to further materials about some of the topics that we've spoken about today. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Once again, this podcast was brought to you by Rigby. We're a staffing and project services company here in Zurich. If you would like our help either to hire or to be hired, let us know. Best way to do that is by going to rigby.ch/apply and filling out the form. You can also sign up for our newsletter at rigby.ch/newsletter to receive our Living in Switzerland guide. We'll send you 1 email per month about expat-focused news and jobs in Switzerland. So thanks, and until the next time.